image.
I know it's just this way of this thing. So we're live. It's Dr. Rob Kiltz and Dr. Lisa Wiedeman, Carnivore Doctor. Welcome, Lisa. I'm just so excited to have you on and share your thoughts and ideas how we can all truly heal ourselves. How are you doing today?
Just so awesome, Rob. Thanks so much for having me on. You know, it's my total passion to pretty much have diarrhea of the mouth to talk about this because it's how the word is spreading. It's not spreading any other way other than grassroots. Those of us who are living it, experiencing it, watching others come into it and heal and watch their amazing journeys. It's just so exciting. But it's realizing that unless we are really out here talking about it and posting about it, unfortunately, social media, it's got its, downside to it too. But it really is. It's the way of it's the only way in my mind. And I'm like so grateful for this whole Instagram, social media, Facebook, YouTube movement that it allows us a voice.
Well, I've got my good friend Dr. Faruqi joining me this week in the weekend, and he brought a good friend, a young doctor, and it's an interesting thing how we doctors could be so adamantly opposed to these carnivore ideas, and I'm just curious on how you've sort of experienced this throughout your carnivore or life and maybe I'm gonna stop because that's mostly a comment on my side. I don't think I know the answer, and but tell us a little bit about how you got to where you're at as a carnivore doctor.
Wow, such an interesting, long, twisted journey to get here. But I think everybody's is. I mean, nobody has a straight path, and I feel that to coin a term, I believe it was from Christy Code Red, you have to have a why that makes you cry, because nobody really starts digging down and researching and trying to figure out the optimal human diet, right? Just haphazardly in their spare time for fun, it's because you have a motivation. And then I'll go to Charles Washington's famous saying, it's the lucky ones who get fat, because those are the ones that are typically early on at a younger age driven to try to figure this whole thing out. Now, whether it's from just metabolic disorder from diabetes, or whether it's true, carb, sugar, eating disorder, binge addiction, which I suffered from for so long. So I'll segue into answering your question there. I had such a long history of struggling with my weight, and my parents are obese and diabetic. My brother's obese and diabetic. I was husky, chunky as a kid. And it developed into eating disorders, and it was totally so removed from my mind that I actually had a serious problem with this, like an addiction, that it was truly something that I was trying to control and I couldn't control it, and I couldn't figure out why. So I kept hunting, seeking, searching the answer. And thankfully at the point where the internet came about, and I was, still, then I found, there was the Atkins, and then there was paleo, and I read a book, Schwarzbein Principle, which basically said to get rid of sugar and flour. And all these were steps in the right direction, but still were not eradicating my horrible, overwhelming problem. So yeah, it was through finding a tiny little forum, zeroing in on health. And they were a small group of zero carbers, meaning eating carnivore, but back then we called it zero carb. And they were a small group over on Living Low Carb Vita, Jimmy Moore's. He had a pretty big low carb community forum, and they started a thread, and the thread kept growing. And I believe the story is he booted them off because it wasn't the standard of the message there. And yeah, I came across the group, and there was so many people in there. Well, at the time it seemed so many, but it was like 100 people. I was like, wow, look at all these people, and what are they doing? And luckily for me, there was 2 women on there, and everybody kept individual journals, and they spoke openly about their food addiction and binge eating and how this has resolved their eating disorder. And I was like, I was all ears at that point. And I jumped in March 9th, 2009. I said, all right, let's go for it. I'm going to just keep researching as I am my own N=1 experiment with it. And the longer I did it, the more I realized I was like, wow, this is really powerful. There's something to this. Plus, staying in there and reading people resolving their arthritis, their diabetes, their anxiety, their bipolar. It was just on and on and on of who was resolving what malady. And then I thought, wow, what the heck? We're told the opposite. We're told to eat tons of fruits and vegetables, eat lean meat. If anything, go meatless Monday. And the whole agenda was the opposite of what I was now focusing on. And it became very difficult when, and I'm sure anybody who's kind of into this is getting this, is that, what about your heart? What about your cholesterol? My doctor's insisting I go on a statin. Well, and it's like, it's so difficult. There's so much noise and so much opposite information, all the way to slather on sunscreen every day. You don't want to get skin cancer, right? I do the opposite. I don't come within 10 feet of a bottle of Coppertone. Okay. I don't even want to be close to somebody on the beach spraying it and be downwind of them when I smell the chemical and think that it's getting on my skin. And I was like, and then it became like, I don't want to say it became like a joke, but I was like, I actually do have to do the opposite of what I'm being told. So that's kind of my path into this, because I know some people who will come onto my Instagram and they're curious because I don't, it's not like a set thing that I'm out there saying all the time, but I do in every interview, I talk about how I got here, because it doesn't matter how I got here or how you got here, or, if it's somebody trying to resolve infertility issues, somebody trying to resolve Hashimoto's, somebody who's got depression and anxiety, it doesn't matter. All it matters is that we come together as a community and we start putting out the information, the science behind it. Yeah, there's no science as far as a specific study, because I tell people, they go, well, show me the science. Well, you know what? It costs millions of dollars to do an appropriate study. And you can't possibly, diet-related studies are almost impossible. You would have to actually isolate people for a long period of time, because nobody remembers exactly what they ate. And nobody is so steadfast because they're in a study that they're not going to go off plan. You cannot do an appropriate study. So here's the study, me and you, and now thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who are all basically, anecdotal, testimonial. I don't care what you want to call it. It doesn't matter. Listen and learn and jump in and try it for yourself. So that's really my.
So 09 was when you found the group that got you moving forward. And how did you feel? And did you go straight carnivore right away, or how did you do that? Because that was like so radical. And what were people thinking around you?
It was really radical. And I actually at the time was married and had kids that were about 12 and 14. I actually did it for 2 weeks with nobody even noticing. And because, when I would make meals, I would grill, pork chops and sausage, and then I would make rice maybe for them and maybe some vegetable, right? Because that's what's normal and that's what you should do. And then I was just not eating the rice and the veggie. And, I think they were used to me doing the no bread thing that I had done leading up to this. I had gone pretty much, I was attempting to go sugar-free, flour-free. And at that point, the moment I did that, within 2 weeks, I used to have, like, I'll say adult cystic acne, like along my jawline, down my neck. And if you go onto my Instagram page, pretty early, I started it about 2.5 years ago, but there's not that many posts there, but you can see I have the before and after from 2 weeks difference of just the sugar and the flour. And I said, wow, this is powerful. So I had already been a little bit in that low carb world, but still having an issue with my whole eating disorder thing. So it became evident, like once I hit this group and was learning that this is serious. I got to draw the line and just not have any of that stuff anymore. And if I really truly am seeking health, I have to take this seriously. And yeah, so eventually, it came out to the whole family thing, like, yeah, I'm just eating meat and eggs. And nope. Yeah. It wasn't, nobody was in agreement, because my kids would come home from school at like maybe I was about a year into it. And then my son came home from health class, PE gym class has health. And he was serious. He goes, Mom, do you know what you're doing? You're supposed to eat lean meat and lots of fruits and vegetables. What are you doing? Like, he was like, the teachers are God, and Mom doesn't know what the heck she's doing this, and it's so difficult. And my husband at the time was all about everything in moderation. And the point is that I can't moderate. And that aside from that part of it, for everybody, not that anybody else had the path that I had coming into it, but for everybody, sugar's inflammatory, grains, gluten, nuts, seeds, inflammatory. They're not intended for our body. So, I got to the point where I was not going to push the way I ate on anybody else. And it was a difficult path. It was very difficult, because I was at the point where there was still mac and cheese and pizza and cereal and ice cream in the freezer, the typical Breyers, in the freezer stuff.
Right.
And
very difficult.
Yeah. And so I have to say, I talk about this with people I coach, both privately and in groups. I say, look, you have to understand that this is, if you're in a serious situation where you cannot control this, which I find anybody who's been in this journey, like where I have, it is so very difficult to be in front of it and have it around. And you have to figure out ways. You have to either put everything into one, cabinet, and that's where that stuff stays. And, you have to be so steadfast. And it's not easy, because, and I have this famous phrase. It's like, we're flying our freak flag, like you go out to a party and people are like, wow, you look, it might be, you look great. What are you doing? And then when you're talking about it, you realize nobody wants to hear that. Everybody wants to indulge. They're eating, they're drinking, they're having fun. And they're like, really? No vegetables? Well, it might be fine now, but wait till you have a heart attack in 5 years. And then it's like, blah, blah, blah. You get all these naysayers, whether it's coworkers, friends, family, you get it. You get bombarded by it. So you have to have a thick skin, and you also have to learn to just zip it up, because nobody really cares unless they really care. And then you can pick that up. If they really care, come on at me. I'm so happy to share any, past experience I have with this. And, I've had very great, situations with that happening. But for the most part, yeah, everybody you have to come to this with your own why that makes you cry, or everybody just thinks you're crazy. So.
When you first got into this in '09, so it's been about 13 years, plus or minus some time. What have you seen as the real, the change? And when did you first start seeing the change in the community? Because it must have been very lonely then. It's a lot less lonely today and much more supportive. Can you tell us a little bit about the transitions you felt and gone through?
Yeah. So the first stage was just go, really? Okay, let's do this here. I mean, I'm a medical professional. I've been, an eye doctor for 30 years. I'm in the whole medical community. I don't take my health lightly, but I knew I had to resolve my own issue. So I jumped into it a little hesitant, just because I'm like, all right, what? And then I started reading Fat of the Land, Not by Bread Alone, learning about the primitive tribes that were still eating this way. I had that phase of it. And then very quickly, I was like, wow, I was just like eating a porterhouse twice a day and loving life. And I was dropping that excess weight that just had been nagging, that I've, as a, body image issue female, there's always that last 10, 15 pounds that are just, you can't get off, and you're always trying to diet, whether it's the cabbage soup diet, you name it. We probably all tried every diet, right? Now, all of a sudden, I feel great. I'm living life. I'm eating these steaks, and I'm like, now I just wanted to get on my soapbox. I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. I wanted everybody to know about this, whatever you, because then I was also in that forum group where, I was like, wow, these people are getting rid of all their diabetic medications. Wow, these people who were arthritic and getting injections in their knees are now like out walking every day. And I'm like, there's something to this. So then I wanted to, and then I got through that phase very quickly because I realized, yeah, nobody really wants to listen, because nobody wants to give up their chips and their ice cream and their cookies and living their life as we know it. And so I just kind of settled into, I guess, kind of just backing off and just living my life. And I could pick and choose who I really felt was genuinely interested and helped and coached people along the way.
Okay.
But then it came out where, the Joe Rogan interview with Sean Baker. And, I've been friends with Kelly Hogan since back when she joined that forum that I'm talking about long ago. And, I was still in touch with her, and I knew she had, there was, then Facebook came about, and Charles had shifted that group over onto Facebook. And then Dana Spencer had her Zero Carb Health on Facebook. And those were big groups. And I would go in there, but, after you kind of they had all the admins answering all the questions, and you get tired of all the same things. And I was just like, I said, you know what, I'm just living my life. But then when it came out more and more, I was like, wow, you know what I was hearing, Rob? I was hearing people comment or reading in comments of some of these that, well, that's great now, but not sustainable, not healthy long-term. And I was just like, wait a minute, here I am. It is sustainable, and I think I'm pretty darn healthy. So I felt the need to be open about this. And, it's not so easy making your life public and your secretive prior past history public. But I felt it was so important at that point. I thought to myself, if I could help one person out of the hellhole I was in, this would all be worth it. And so, yeah, then I made a separate, just on a whim, because I wanted to follow specific carnivore people. I was like, well, let me just make a separate Instagram account from my little family and friends one that I didn't really even do anything with. I was like, let me just make, and I was like, Carnivore Doctor. Okay, I'll make that name. And then within, like, I would just comment on different things, and wow, it just exploded. It just fell into my lap, this amazing way for me to share my passion and my knowledge and my experience. And so that's really 2.5 years ago when I made that initial Instagram account. And then I started doing a little bit on YouTube, and then now I'm helping so many people in such an amazing way that it's so rewarding, and it's so important to me, because I've gone through, even, at work, I'm not able to, well, I wasn't at the position I was in where I had been working, or wasn't able to fully try to do root cause healing of patients, because that's not standard protocol. And it's really kind of against the narrative, and it's not allowed. And so I decided that, you know what, if I can't practice the way I want to, I can't bite my tongue. I can't have a diabetic in my chair who has bleeding in their eye, who I just have to explain diabetic retinopathy and how this is one of the leading causes of blindness, and tell them, make sure you listen to your doctor about, regulating your blood sugar, because they're going to get the same thing that the ADA, the American Diabetic Association, they have a certain carbohydrate requirement in their diet. It's like, well, you eat carbs, you got to just either inject more insulin or take more metformin. I don't know, what the heck. People are not understanding that this is totally reversible. You're totally reliant for the rest of your life to purchase these medications from these pharmaceutical companies. And that's not the way it has to be or should be, because we're not eating our natural diet. And unfortunately, some people, shocked to me, even after explaining this, they're like, and how I tell them they can reverse the diabetes or reverse their, severe dry eye and blepharitis and macular degeneration and all this. And I tell them what's involved as far as, eliminating, inflammatory sugars, grains. I don't usually go as far as the fruits and vegetables yet. I'm just trying to lay this out. And then, this person is sitting there with a new diagnosis of bleeding in their eye from diabetes. And I'm talking about it. I'm spending all this time. And then they're like, oh, I can't do that. I'm Italian. I can't not eat pasta and bread. And I said, oh, are you going to tell me that when you get the white cane too, that you still can't do it? I mean, really, it's like I'm telling them to chop off the right arm. It's mind boggling to me.
It is such and again, obviously in my practice, I've been doing carnivore for almost 12 years, yet I really never talked about it. I talked about keto because, keto seemed like the safe thing to say. It's kind of paleo and keto and things like that. And so I think I've been inspired by you and others in this carnivore world. Is like, okay, it seems like there's a mass numbers that there's that right number that says, okay, it's time to move. And it's as if the exponential growth in this carnivore world. Would you comment on what you're thinking about that exponential growth and more people leaping onto the carnivore world?
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up, because I was actually just thinking to myself, how many now are there? Because, somebody's succeeding and then they're telling their neighbor, their sister, their aunt, their mother, whoever they also sense really could use this, or that person expresses it. So this is like, it's exponentially growing. It has to be. But what's the number? What is it? And how do we find out? Like, I still feel, for the most part, it's interesting to think that I still feel like we're in the top elite 3% of the entire population that is in the know about this, because I just feel everybody, everywhere you go, all it is food and parties and food-oriented stuff and junk and inflammatory food. It's sugar, it's grains, it's fat. It's these companies that hire these addiction specialists on staff to get this stuff to be as toxically addictive as possible. And I'm still, although I have to say, just the other night, I was at a social gathering, and this young guy who's 29, who I've known in the past few years, but most people don't really know this part of me. Like, if I'm just friends of a friend and I'm out and I run into you a few times a year, you don't typically know this about me, right? But somehow he did, through, somebody else mentioning it. And he himself had come about this through, he showed me on his phone, Paul Saladino. He had come across, I guess, whether somebody forwarded it to him or however he came about it. And so it was like kind of one of my encounters where I was like, wow, this is somebody who had come into this on their own and not fully carnivore, because of course now Saladino is animal based. And so this guy was eating his bananas each day and this and that. And I said, try cutting out the bananas. I said, there's no reason that, because he has like, I don't know, if I had to guess, 20, 30 pounds to lose, but he was so excited because he'd only done it like, I guess 2 or 3 weeks at this point, and he is already down like 12 pounds, and he was just ecstatic. And so it's interesting to be able to run now into that scenario where I never would have had that happen 13 years ago, right? And then I'll just put out there, it was last year, I was randomly in an airport down in Florida in the terminal near baggage claim. And this Asian woman is walking by. She goes, oh, Carnivore Doctor. So it's like I had a celebrity spotting of somebody who obviously is in this carnivore world, right? And knew about it. And so for sure, that's a sign that it's spreading. But yeah, it's so hard to figure out. And then that's the other thing where I tell people, because people are like, well, if it was so great, everybody would know about it, and that would be what we're told to do. And I was like, no, not so fast there, Roger. You know what? Where's the money? Nobody's, able to really profit off of this. And so that's what drives things. Unfortunately, it's the pharmaceutical industry, the food industry, and the healthcare industry are the big profiters. And I'm always wishing that the huge cattle ranchers industry somehow would band together and do like, but then it looks like, I guess they can't really, because then it looks like they're just promoting themselves, but that's the way it is.
Or maybe they're owned by all of the food companies essentially, on the greatest level anyway, in the marketing level. But I imagine, selling more meat is still good, but it's still somehow driven by this idea that lean meat is better and no red meat, and it's fish and chicken and turkey, which are lean, and just getting people to eat fat, which really is that is still the hardest thing. When you say it's the eating of fat, which is the barrier in so many ways?
Big time, big time. I wish Nina Teicholz's book would be like on the bestseller list and people could really understand this whole thing about fat. But it is, it's just it's such cognitive dissonance for people to hear constantly from one side, on TV, magazines, everywhere, that saturated fat, you got to limit it, and heart disease and cholesterol and clogged arteries and atherosclerosis. It's like, bum, 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 that's hitting us. And then this other side is saying, fat's healthy, butter's healthy. You actually want your chicken wings fried in beef tallow like they do at Buffalo Wild Wings, and not what they do at 99.9% of all the other restaurants and put it in soybean, canola, some sort of oil.
Industrial oil.
Industrial stench. Yeah,
Right.
it's toxic garbage. And that's my other, I really try to consistently put out the message that those seed oils should be avoided like the plague, like no other, because they came into our food in about 1910, and just progressively, starting with like Crisco and margarine. And then the message was that's healthy and good. And yeah, it's so difficult, especially because, sometimes I'll to a newbie who's like just a random interested person at a party, let's say, who's hearing about, who wants to and ask questions. I'm like, yeah, I just eat meat, pretty much meat, eggs, butter, and that's it. And I go, literally, that's it. Because they're like, well, you still eat vegetables, right? And I go, no, did you hear what I said? I literally eat meat, eggs, butter. I said, that's it. And then they're like, oh, I could do that. I could do that. I love bacon and steak. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But you also can't eat chips and fries and, so it's hard.
On the side of gender, men and women, and getting them to do the carnivore, what's your sense on how to? I'm seeing so many women in the carnivore space. It's really inspiring. I know in my practice, it's, oh, my husband can do that, my partner can do that, but it's such a opposite story, that to get it across that women would just benefit so much from this on the hormonal side, every disease, as you talked about, it really is the root cause of disease, is what you're saying, is plants, and eating an animal based nutrition is the healer.
Yeah, and in comment to the men and the women thing, it's very interesting through my years of being in this and my current group of followers. on Instagram, plus the population in my groups. I have, I have a lot of groups because I feel, number one, community is the opposite of addiction. And anybody who's gone through trying to give up chocolate and cake and cookies and ice cream and chips and know how strong the drive is to keep eating it or binging on it, whatever. I love the community and the fact that when you come to this way of eating, just like we were talking about, it feels so isolating because nobody else is eating this way. And everybody else thinks you're crazy for eating this way. Pretty much. That's really what it comes down to. So to be able to come into these groups and talk for an hour and ask questions and interact and then exchange information and, stay in contact off of the meetings too. And then we'll segue into why I love doing these meetups. I just really feel passionate about bringing people together face to face. And I said, all you need is 2 people to make a meetup. If you have 4, if you have 5, if we had over 80 this past, when you attended this past summer. And it's so empowering in the most inexplicable way to be surrounded by all these people that are that invested in their own health and are so fascinated to learn from everybody else and what their experiences was. It's just from them saying, wow, just wow. And I just feel like I'm just going to keep doing them and keep trying to bring people together and keep people knowing that don't isolate yourself. Don't fall back into your old unhealthy eating patterns because somebody says, oh, you only live once. Oh, I made this just for you. Oh, it's the holidays. Oh, it's your birthday. Whatever it is, if there's no excuse to put garbage in your mouth, there's no excuse for treating your body like a garbage can. And in my opinion, and I'm sure yours too, if you're not eating just a fatty meat, eggs, then the other stuff is not beneficial. It's not leading you toward a healthy microbiome. It's not leading you to decrease inflammation. It's not leading you on the right path. So don't put it in your mouth. But again, it makes you out to be very, very much flying the freak flag. And it is difficult. And that's why these groups and communities to me is just so very important.
So if you think about it, all the entertainment venues are all really venues for bad eating, and so there are a lot of venues for the opposite nutrition, and so the meetups are really, really important to sort of develop. And I did one with Jonathan, came down to my place this last week down in Sarasota. It was great. We're still working, I don't know, just getting it organized, but it is so important to bring people in. I went to yours in what was it, August, beginning of August, or I didn't remember, July. It was so exciting and amazing to meet so many new people, Kelly Hogan, yourself, and again, so many people on the journey that are yearning to learn. And we all want to get the commitment to that. And as a physician, I got to tell you, this has been the game changer for me to see and feel and know people that are on this journey, listen to their stories. I just listened to Michelle Hearn's book on Dietitian's Dilemma, and just the number of people out there that are doing this is inspiring when we're in the midst. And you as a doctor also in your environment, for me, it's still the opposite approach. And there's a tremendous amount of no way, not sustainable, but we're inspired by so many people doing it, sharing the stories on now social medicine and social media. Wouldn't you agree that that's sort of the real way to say, hey, listen, I've been doing it for this long and I've never felt better. And I know if I drink a little alcohol or have too many fries, then I'm not going to feel so good. And so you have to decide where you're at, but we get it because of the tribe. I've been off coffee now for 2 months because of these groups that have inspired me. So I have a few more changes to go, but
We all do bit by bit. we all have places where we feel we can improve, like, but then it keeps spreading, because once you get to this stage, then you're like, all right, I got to get rid of all the plastic and only use glass. All right, I need to shut the Wi-Fi off at night. It's like you can go crazy with all this, but for as far as the whole carnivore thing and eating, it's like, it's it's so difficult. It's so simple, but it's so difficult. I mean, you could go to Home Depot to buy a hammer and you've got Kit Kats in front of you and Snickers and a whole wall of these high profit foods. And so that it makes it difficult, and other people aren't on board with you. And even as like a physician, and I mean, I'm sure there's people who have crossed our paths that think we're total quacks. I'm sure of it, but I say, to some people say, that's really great, but you can't possibly think that's healthy for your heart. And you're not going to, well, you know what? I could name 4 cardiologists right now who eat this way. Okay.
They're growing.
Do you think they're taking their heart health lightly? I think not. So before you discount what I'm saying, maybe you could be interested enough to start going down that rabbit hole if you're interested. And what I know I skipped, because I always go off on these tangents when I'm talking, because I get so excited and I'm like going on 5 different questions. But
we're in the living room together.
Yeah, I was getting at where you brought up with the men and the women thing. So first there's the women thing where, yeah, I mean, I spent years attempting to eat salads with lean, dried out, boneless, skinless chicken breast on it, right? With just, some vinegar. God forbid you actually add also oil in there, the fat, and it was just so thought as the right thing to do to lose weight. You got to reduce the fat, right? And so, women typically had that stigma of like, oh, I'm just having a salad, right? Well, bring on the fatty ribeye and the bacon with butter on the side, please. And then you look like you're a total, kook. But, and then you would think, well, men would take to this so quickly and easily. And I have to say, in all of my groups, and maybe it's just because of who I am, and maybe there's a lot, I'm sure Sean Baker and Dr. Chafee all have their higher percentage of men followers. But as far as being in these community groups, I have some awesome men in them, but it's a small percentage. And as I talked to one of the guys in the group, I was like, what's your take on why you think that is? And he said, in general, there's a societal stigma against men seeking help or seeking guidance or seeking, or admitting a weakness that they're looking toward a group or community to help them. And that it's like, that there could be something to that, and also men seem to be a lot more comfortable with their little bit of a dad bod and their pot belly. And women, on the other hand, are like, you know what? I really want to try to wear a bikini like you do and do cartwheels out there. And they have a different type of motivation. So I'm not that has anything to do with anything, but just from your comment about the men-women thing, I do find it really interesting. And then it was so funny. For a short period of time, I dated this guy who thought, I pretty much, without him saying it, thought I was a little cuckoo with this, but and he lifted, worked out, he tried to keep in shape, but he would make egg whites with turkey in it. He had tons of boneless, skinless chicken breasts he would grill up ahead of time for his week of work. And it would be funny. We'd go out to dinner and he'd get like shrimp salad, apple, walnut vinaigrette, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be getting my ribeye. And every time when the waiter comes, they go to put the salad in front of me. And I go, nope. Come to mama here with that big steak.
But it is, everyone wants to feel good and look good. I mean, that's our real drive in life, right? And yet we're so brainwashed with that opposite idea. Visiting doc is a new just finishing training, and is so adamant against this story. And what I'm amazed about is the lack of even stepping back and listening to the possibilities, that we're so resistant to that whole story, the possibilities. Well, let me just tell you a story. If you're suffering, you're feeling bad, or you think you're looking bad, how can we continue to inspire? And I know from you've inspired me to keep sharing even more and more and more. And so many great people on with just from everywhere, that it's that growing community around the globe. And I too am just sort of going off on these tangents. There's a million questions, but a lot of it is just the conversation about it. It's hard to change, and that's not our tribe yet.
Yeah. You know what? I think I think that from my experience with talking to so many people, what it comes down to is this toxic food really actually tastes pretty damn good. When you talk about a hot brownie a la mode and you talk about nachos grande and that stuff does taste good. I mean, I'm not going to deny that. So to tell somebody and get somebody to eliminate that from their diet and understand that they really need to eliminate it to live a long, healthy, active life, there's no immediate penalty tomorrow for eating the dessert or the pizza today for most people, unless you have an issue with IBS or Crohn's. And those are the lucky ones. Those are the ones that it attacked their body soon enough that they sought the answer and are doing something about it. But for the others, you can look around at any gathering, and these people are happy and laughing and eating all this crap. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh God, they just don't know. They don't know. And when's it going to hit them? Is it going to be Alzheimer's, dementia, stroke, hypertension going to creep in? At what point? At 7 years, at 17 years later? When? And man, if they only knew right now, because I'm going to say 100% of us who come into this, when we come into it, we say, damn, if I had only found out about this when I was 30, 25, whatever it is.
I'm 66. I was 55 when I started carnivore. I had 5 years dabbled in paleo and keto, and before that it was Atkins and working out, and I was always suffering in one way, but I felt good enough of the time. But really, it was serendipity that I learned about paleo in the first place from some patients doing it, and they getting pregnant without me, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? And then I learned about keto through Marie Emmerich at first, and then I don't even remember who I was watching a YouTube on some guy giving a lecture who's carnivore. I don't even know who it was, and he was like, I don't exercise, I eat meat only, and he looked amazing, and all these diseases go away, and in 1 month, arthritis, psoriasis, bowel bleeding, hemorrhoids, migraines, all gone for me. And I'm still digging deep into, like, well, we're like kids in a candy store. Well, that's not we're that we found the holy grail, right? We know the answer, but because I've been told don't talk about it. I've been warned about it. And so you too have felt that also.
Oh
And
yeah,
yet,
all hand slap, and no, this is not how we treat patients. And yeah,
so ultimately but your primary goal in life is to help people.
absolutely. And to spread the knowledge. I think it's interesting after this whole virus kind of thingy happened, and people became much more aware of being bamboozled and told incorrect information. I think people then are like, well, what else are we incorrectly told? Well, you know what? Go look at that food pyramid. Let's start with that. Okay. That's a big bamboozle right there. There's a lot of corporate money behind how that comes about. And people don't think that. They don't realize that. And just like my parents, they're in their 80s and they're not internet savvy, okay? And they're sitting there and they're watching Dr. Oz, who's sponsored by the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry, and they're listening like this is gospel, and it's just so sad.
There's a lot of junk coming out of the Western or the global pharmaceutical and medical industry, and so the fighting is really, we realize that it's sort of like we're wrestling with pigs that like mud, and it's better to stay above the mud and just share the story. Any thoughts on fasting, and there's a couple of questions on salt, and I know you're a big fan of Redmond salt, and maybe you could comment a little bit about your salt thoughts and fasting thoughts.
Yeah, I'll start with the salt. I use Redmond because I actually read off at that meetup that we just had, because they helped sponsor by giving everybody these great little mini travel salt shakers, and just the history behind that salt and why. Because people are like, well, why does this Redmond get this explosive coverage and popularity in this community? Well, I urge you, go to their website and read about how the salt is mined and the minerals are in there, and it's not stripped by via chemicals and all this stuff. So it's very interesting, that. And I think you're also a fan of Maldon too. I am. I use Maldon salt also. And I know there's some people in this carnivore, let's say, world that don't use salt at all. That's not me. I feel it's important. I mean, I think there was salt licks out there, and animals will go to it. And I have, I don't really know there's a definitive answer. All I know is that naturally I'm drawn to have it, and I use it. I don't overuse it. I also, if people listen to me over on Instagram, and I'm going to be doing some more like sort of preliminary how-to carnivore videos on YouTube soon too, because it's just really important that people who are lost and don't know where to start might have a good starting point. But yeah, I'm not big on the whole electrolyte thing. I feel like I get what I need through my fatty meat and eggs, and I'm not big on, and I know some people get leg cramps, and I know it helps some people, or if you're hiking and it's 100 degrees and you're sweating profusely, yeah, there might be a need for it. But on a daily basis, to purchase a product that, I try to keep everything simple and say, you know what, just live simply. You don't have to buy anything that comes in a box, a bag, a bottle, or a jar. Where that's not how man was intended to live. And some people say, well, our soils are so, mineral depleted now, and all that. Great, fine. I don't know. Show me, where after 13 and a half years not supplementing with potassium, magnesium, and sodium has done me wrong. I don't know. But I'm not against it. If somebody actually thinks there's a benefit to them and feels a benefit, awesome. That's my experience. Fasting, I've gone through different phases and stages of experimenting with it, and I'm now more in the camp where I think our bodies really can only assimilate a certain amount of protein per meal. So for people who would, let's say, fast for a period of time and then just go hog wild on, a pound and a half of, of meat, I think you're much better off splitting that into two and having a smaller amount. Are there autophagy benefits through extended fasting? Yeah, I'm sure there is. But you know what? What happens for me when I feel like my body tells me I need to extended fast? Right back in December, when I had that nasty little bug and I had no appetite, I fasted for 4 days because my body said, don't eat. And that's how your body can heal. And there is benefit if you have seizure disorder, if you have cancer, if you have some sort of severe, physical issue going on, that going into a deep, deep state of autophagy and fasting could be very helpful. But in a day-to-day life, I don't feel like I want to do a 36-hour fast every other week or every week, or alternate day fasting. I personally am not comfortable. My brain, and I think our brains are wired to say, eat okay, it's time to eat. It's a survival mechanism, and it's so strong. It's just such a prominent thing for me that I'm not comfortable with. I don't enjoy it, so I don't want to feel like I have to keep doing it.
It's not a requirement. For some people, they find some spiritual or other benefits from it. And I think eating 3 to 6 meals a day, you'd agree, probably isn't the way. But
Yeah.
split a meal 1 or 2 times a day. And I think daily habits are easy to create, but to do something for a few days and then alternate days, the brain is like, "What are you doing?" I think it doesn't make sense to the brain.
Yeah, and I think what's important to really understand here is that we have to change the relationship with food that most of us had come about to with smells good, tastes good, I'm hungry, I want it, I'm bored, I'm stressed, I'm angry. Eating for an emotional event, eating is, cannot be for emotional reasons. And that's what's hard to change our relationship to, is that we don't want to be driven to eat because of comfort, stress, all those things that I was just naming. You want to really, and I know it sounds simple, but it's not, but it really, the whole fast, like for me, like if somebody who wants to fast to drop weight, and if they still plan on continuing to fast once they get down to their goal weight, then if that's what your plan is, then great. But if that's not your plan, then you should really just start doing what you're ultimately going to do long term. And again, one of the things that I think is really important to understand is that emotional event eating, and that is what typically will drive somebody to eat 4 to 6 times a day, right? It's not a hunger necessity or a survival necessity at that point. And that's what I think more has to be kind of hit the brain, like, okay, why am I eating? Am I hungry enough to have a piece of meat? That's the question. If I'm walking over to the pantry or the fridge for any other reason than I'm actually hungry enough to desire a piece of meat, then I probably shouldn't be in the kitchen right now.
So on the idea is it better to have a coach and a cheerleader, or a Western doctor to help you really get to your goals?
That's so hard to answer because it really depends on somebody's current situation. I mean, if somebody's 200 pounds overweight and is in dire, has really dire medical issues, I still think you're better off as with the coach, but you might need a little medical supervision to come off medication, to
Yeah,
deprescribe. It's called deprescribing.
right. So the thing that I've learned over this few years, and really it's just pre-COVID, and COVID has really changed my sort of uh, uh, intention and where I want to continue to share ideas and real health and wellness. It's really through a coach and cheerleader. And I think that's why your groups are so critical and important to be a coach and cheerleader, because to get to change the things that have been hurting you for so long, to get this to success, you need someone.
Yeah, and that's what comes down to what I talk about, it being that the rules are really simple. The rules are simple, but it's not easy. And it's not easy to navigate vacations, and it's not easy to navigate holidays or social situations or group dinners that you used to always do that are now kind of changed, especially if it was a potluck and somebody brings lasagna. Changes the rules, and it's not easy. So um and and the bottom line is really, if being totally healthy and lean, and like you said, that is a driving force for a lot of us. You get such a different pep in your step when you have to buy new clothes that are smaller, and you're feeling optimistic, like for once in your life, for once you get it, you got it, and all I got to do is implement it, right? and to have other people in that same scenario, and being supportive as far as anything that comes up along the way, or wow, I've got this business trip coming up, and it's always a huge food and drinking alcohol fest. How do I navigate this? And so this one woman in this group, she's rather freaking out. Like 3 weeks from now is this big business event where she's flying to San Diego, and every year it's like all on, all
Party,
it's
party,
it's
party.
party. It's the food and the drink, and the women are in her office are already badgering her because they know what she's doing now, and they know that actually. And I coached her into at least giving up alcohol for a period of time, and I said, let your friends get used to the fact that you're not going to drink all the time. They have rosé lunches, right? I go, got to get rid of those rosé lunches. They're not doing you any good. And these people have to get used to that. You're not going to be the drinker all the time now. So these people are already badgering her about that next event. And then and even when you get there and you're around people that from the prior years, and they go, I said, just hold your seltzer, right? Glass of ice and seltzer and a lime in there. I said, nobody knows if there's vodka in there or not, right? Oh, wait a minute.
Oh my God, great cup, Lisa.
So, you know what I say, which is a great thing to say to people, like no matter what kind of social situation you might all of a sudden be, snagged in, and let's say you are trying to push away the alcohol. We know it's a toxin. We don't want to do it often, right? And say there's a specific time that you feel that way. All you say, oh yeah, I'm doing this 90-day challenge. And boy, do I feel great. Just like, yep, I'm doing a 90-day challenge. Boy, what bad timing that it's during this event, during this business trip. Oh, bad timing, but boy, do I feel great. Nobody can deny you how you feel. So no matter what it is, when people say, oh, are you still doing that wacky meat thing? Go, yeah, and I've never felt better. End of story.
Because the alcohol's not required in our nutrition, and eating all the other plant stuff's not required. And it's hard to say no, but the practice is to say no, thank you, I won't go, because many of these things aren't required. Or maybe some of those parties aren't required. It's the challenge to say no, thank you also, but then the strength also when you're there to just stick to your story, which
right.
is your real glory.
Yeah. And to think, you know what, this doesn't have to be forever. I don't have to choose this every single situation. I'm choosing it for now, and sometimes we really have to make certain sacrifices to learn something about our body. Let me see how my body feels with, let's say we're not fibbing about the 90-day challenge. Let's say we really are going to do 90 days with whatever it is that seems to be your problem, whether it's artificial sweeteners, which we could get off on that topic too, or coffee or alcohol, even if it's just an occasional social drinking. Just say, you know what, I'm going to just for 90 days, I just want to see if I can learn something. I can go back to it. And then, that's the other thing you can say to people. It's like, oh, you can't have that, can you? No, I can have it. I choose not to. I'm just choosing not to right now, and end of story. You don't owe anybody an explanation. I always say that too. Just remember that nobody, you owe nobody an explanation. Even if it's a family member, you know what? All you got to do is say, yeah, I'm still doing this thing. And boy, I feel better and better every day. You can't deny somebody saying that to you. You can't say, no, you don't. Right. So you just continue to keep that narrative. I feel great. I feel great.
You have the power. And I think that's where the coaching is really critical, to help inspire people, that give them the words, the language, the experience to move in the direction that they really want to be in, is to feel great and look great and add some positivity to their direction of life.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, I say, when you go to a party, go onto my YouTube channel and go to the bacon knots video, and you knot up bacon, you double knot bacon. First you can sprinkle on whatever you want, everything but the bagel spice, or Parmesan cheese or a little garlic powder, and put them into, you knot it up like once or twice, depending on how long it is. And you can get the whole package or 2 packages on a cookie sheet. You bake it up and you bring it to the party with you. And I always warn them, I go, make sure you grab enough and eat enough when you're home in your kitchen, because that's going to be gone in a split second at the party. I said, just be prepared when you go places. You know, there's going to be potato salad and macaroni salad. And you know what? Just bring some sausages with, little side specialty dish of horseradish mustard, and bring these bacon knots. It's like you have plenty to eat. You don't have to feel sorry for yourself that you're not eating the watermelon. Just enjoy the interaction with the people. Have some food that you can eat or eat ahead of time. I mean, there's all ways around this. And that's why it really is important, because without talking about it and without having this little community where even in between my meetings, I have my groups in a private WhatsApp chat so they can talk and discuss in between, like, oh, I got this party tomorrow. Next thing you know, people are putting up the YouTube links, try Dr. Wiedeman's bacon, or do this, or bring this buffalo chicken magic. I know you didn't like it. It's too spicy for you because you're
Oh
still.
yeah, I can't do the spice anymore. And yeah, I used to make salsa and eat it all the time, but I know now, no, don't touch it.
Doesn't go well for you. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Salt,
But
butter.
yeah, so really have a plan. It's, the old saying is, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And
Yes.
honestly, I got to tell you, there's so much strength in our addictions that there's a lot of times where our brain is like, oh, you're going to John's party. You know what's going to be there. It's okay. It's like, you're almost just like, well, and same thing with holidays. Well, Aunt Sue's bringing her famous apple pie.
The taste buds, the thought of the thing already creates the taste, and your body is like, yeah,
The saliva's already going. Yeah.
right. Oh my God. What's your thoughts on tea? I know coffee and teas in general. Where do you kind of put those?
Yeah. For me, and I tell people at the beginning of your whole carnivore journey, if you're jumping into this, you got to be easy on yourself with the coffee and the tea. And the only thing I draw the line at, though, is the artificial sweeteners, the Diet Coke, the chewing gum, the skinny girl this, and the coffee creamer monk fruit that. It's got to go, because if you keep triggering those sweet sensors on your tongue, it's like the stray cat. It's always going to come back. It's always there. If you want to free and get that feeling of freedom from that craving, you got to eliminate it. And and I say, that last thing that you so tightly want to hold on to and not give up is probably the one thing you most need to give up. So there's that. But I will say, for more benign things at the beginning of the journey, let's say like coffee and tea, I say, you know what? Keep it for now. That might be an inner layer of that onion you peel later. But yeah, tea leaves, it's a plant. You're straining boiling water through plant. And technically our whole thing here is about plant toxins, but I'll be very open to say every so often I make an herbal, I don't know, whatever, celestial seasonings, peach herbal, whatever. And yeah, is that so detrimental to me that I'm going to chop a year off my total lifespan? I don't think so. And it doesn't bother my stomach. I feel great. If I tell people, like, realistically, think about this. If you have medications you're on, you have a medical diagnosis of any sort, and you're not really down toward a lean ideal body weight, then you got to think about all these things that you're doing. Okay. But once you're down there, do you want to have half an avocado every few days? Does that make you happy? Does that taste good to you and your body totally tolerates it? Have at it. I have my thing, talking about, like, with coffee. I try to, because so many people will put, it ends up being their first meal of the day. And, in general, my thing is, I got off of caffeine 10 years ago. I was an avid coffee drinker, through college, grad school. I love it. I love the aroma. I love the taste. I love the ritual of it, right? I like so much about it, but I did not want to be a slave to a drug anymore, like caffeine, where I was actually, you go through withdrawal in the morning when you feel like, oh, I need my cup of coffee, is because your body's withdrawing from the drug. I didn't want to be anywhere on vacation and then have to go, all right, where am I getting my coffee in the morning? Do they have it at the lobby? Is there a Starbucks nearby? It's like stupid. I'm like, I want to be able to get up and plan a hike. I don't want to think like, all right, where and when am I getting my cup? Right? That's what had to go for me. And again, everybody's different. I use decaf coffee now as a crutch in a
Mhm.
situation where I was just out with, 3 couples, 6 people, and they're all like going out after all the desserts they ordered, and they're picking in the spooning in and sharing it and passing it around. That's the moment where Lisa has her decaf cappuccino, and I just sit there and sip and enjoy it. And then, I'm part of the group, and I'm talking, I'm laughing, and I get my decaf treat. I'll have a decaf every so often too, but it's not that habit anymore, which again, it's the layers of the onion that I wanted to peel back.
So everyone's sort of got to pick I don't want to use the word poison, but because it's just something that likely has very little harm, and it gets you over the hump in those small times. But there's some things that you're gonna hold your nose to, the no to, and say, okay, nope, not going there. And
Yeah,
it's just, you have every strength to sort of create and be who you are. And
right.
that's why I love you so much, Lisa. And I'm so inspired by the shining light that you have given so many people on this journey. You inspire me in so many ways. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing in the next few months, and on Instagram, YouTube, and things like that. What's
Yeah.
your inspiration of the next level?
You know what? I guess this has gone into such a direction for me where I realize I have put myself in the position to really help a lot of people, which, so I mean, it brings tears to my eyes how grateful I am to my tribe of people, my carnivore crew, I call them, that it empowers me to put in as much effort and time and work as I do into this. And so my plans going forward, I would like to eventually write a book. Just somewhere deep down inside of me, the words need to come out, and need to come out into that, and do more on YouTube, because I'm finding so many. It's just an avenue, because there's some people who aren't on Instagram. I mean, Instagram is my main gig. I have fun with music, and I do my stories, and I try to inspire people to get out and walk every day, and I talk about the meetups that are coming up. I have one in Scranton, by the way, September 2nd. It's a Friday evening at 5 o'clock. I have one of my private coaching clients lives in Scranton. My parents live about a half hour away in the Poconos. And I said, you know what, I'm going to have a meetup so we can meet one day. She's like, oh, I would love that. So now here it is. I was like, you know what, let me make this Scranton thing happen. And I announced it. Now we have, I think, 20 people who are going to join us at some, one of those Brazilian meat restaurants where you get all the meat you can eat. And yeah, so I will continue. My cousin lives in Ohio. Next time I'm out there, I'm going to have one in Ohio. I'm going back down to Florida this winter. Hopefully I'll be able to hook up and make it over to Sarasota, or we can meet halfway some point and have a meetup down there. So more meetups, because I just find that is really, I just really feel it's so important. Not, and I tell people, if you've never been to one, try to figure out how to get to one. And then, my whole YouTube thing is that there's, like I was just saying, not everybody's on Instagram. So a lot of people do not know jack diddly about me. And
Yeah.
because I do spend a lot of effort over there, to just, try to post. I do lives, I'm out on the
Yes.
beach walking and
Beach walks are amazing and inspiring, and everyone needs to get to. Are they on a regular time frame, or they just?
I'm
Because I
trying to figure out a regular time frame for that, which is kind of interesting because, you know, it's really hard when I have all of my set group meetings already. And then I'm like, all right, now am I going to really dedicate to do this? And then, I definitely am going to try to figure out a set time. And then and I post them all. So I think that's a lot of been what my Instagram bottom post parts have become, is all of these different live walks where I just answer questions, and I a lot of times go off on tangents about, you know, the sweetener addiction, or I go off about, you know, how to handle yourselves in just all the naysayers just, you know, jabbing at you all the time, and having, you know, and immerse yourself in podcasts, in, you know, Kiltz's 5 a.m. wake up, immerse yourself in this stuff and listen, and you know, just go to whatever your particular issue is. You can just put it in the search box of a podcast or YouTube and just listen. If it's sugar and carb addiction, start listening to specialists like Joan Ifland, and just immerse yourself in this stuff, because it's so helpful, you know, just to, like we're saying from the get-go here, this is not easy. It's not easy because we are, in the most bizarre way, I say to people, we're doing the most normal, natural thing ever that could you possibly do, which is, you know, man, millions of years hunted animals and ate the fatty meat, right? And now that we're doing that, now we're so bizarre and out of the normal realm of what people could comprehend, that, you know, somebody actually could have a lifestyle like this. But it's amazing. It's really amazing. And I just hope that anybody who's listening, who's having any sort of doubts or trouble, or needs any sort of hand holding through it, that, you know, you're here, I'm here, Kelly Hogan, Bella, there's a lot of people in this carnivore world who are just really passionate to help anybody else find this secret that we all have. But just like you say, you know, the elite and the masters eat the meat, and the masses can go ahead and eat their mush, but that ain't me.
the meetup on September 2nd, is it still open for others to come, by the way?
Yeah,
and
sure.
How they find out about it?
Yeah, so I have a post about it on my Instagram, and yeah, there's a post about it, or they can just send me a email at carnivoredoctor2020@gmail. So Carnivore Doctor spelled out 2020@gmail.com, and I will be sure to get you on the list and get you the information you need. And I do have to make the reservation probably within the next few days because of the fact that it's getting to be pretty large. But you know, there's always things that come up. But I'm planning on having at least 15 people, and I'm just so happy if any. And I have people who are driving to this from Virginia up to Scranton.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I'm only 2 hours north.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna look at my schedule and see if I can make it.
Get Fran and Kathy down too.
Yes, absolutely. Anything I didn't ask, Lisa? You're so inspiring, and I know that so many people, Karen, and so many people I've met already at your meetup, and you know, the beauty is it's really a family, and it's a tribal connection to people that you meet in just a short amount of time, but we're all connected with a goal that is happy, healthy, and strong, but really through simple changes of eliminating and going to the proper human diet, I think, as Ken Berry likes to say.
Yeah, you know, it is such a connection. I mean, we have people in my groups that are in the UK. I coach people in Australia and Singapore. We just have to deal with the time change. That's what makes it a little tricky, but it is so empowering to, just like you said, it's a community. It's like we're making this really, really cool community, because, you know, some of these people from, you know, Bella came out the year before to the meetup, and Karen and like a whole group of them that were in her group decided to fly out, and it became such a great thing that, that in and of itself is empowering to people to know, just knowing you're not in this alone and you are on this journey for yourself, but with these other people who are intelligent enough to have also found their way here.
And the groups and your support groups, when do those happen?
So I right now just do them. I have them monthly, and I have every Wednesday evening and every Saturday morning is my general carnivore community groups. And then I have additional groups where we concentrate on more of a high fat macro way of eating. We're making sure we eat a high enough fat, keeping the protein adequate, but much lower than what we typically, because I'm very open about what's happening in my journey. My A1C was creeping up, and I think I became quite a meat junkie. I was housing pound and a quarter steaks, and I'm only 5'3", and I'm realizing I don't need that much meat. And then you're like, oh, I eat the size of my palm, this meat, and I'm like, where's the rest of your dinner?
Well, I'm amazed. A fistful of meat is about all I need.
As long as you have fat with it, as long as you have butter or cracklings or some other fat, then I would agree.
Well, my meat is actually the fattiest meat you could buy,
Right.
and it's always ribeye, and I always get I get the full fat around it. So when I cook it, I also eat the fatty drippings. I save them, but you're right. Too much protein is not good for you because insulin is increased with the protein, and it's not increased with fat.
So I have these additional groups now formed that for people who have either really, really stalled on their weight loss and they have another 40 to go, they dropped 30 and now they're frustrated, or, and I get people motivated to start testing their ketones and their glucose, and let's see where you're at. And now they have the home A1C monitors. I say, you know what? Let's see what your A1C is, and let's see what we can do by doing adequate protein, not high protein, and bump up the fat. And we've had a lot of really, really interesting results with it. And so that's really it. And right now, unfortunately, I got to say, I haven't leveled up to a great automated website yet to just click and join. I just do it manually, but I will have my website up to par soon. But for now, just send me an email, and I'm really good about getting back to everybody and getting you information if you want to join a group.
And I've been working on Kiltz cups, by the way, and so you can instant message me on Instagram, DM me, I guess. And I'm working on, because some people asked about cups, and Macy and Tammy and Dee is here. I remember so many of these. Let's see, Susan, just so many great, just highs to Lisa.
And I need one of those white Kiltz cups now.
Well, so I did some because I wasn't sure. I didn't want to ruin my whole collection. So, but I did enough, but I've got more of those now. It's like, okay, I know how that glaze works. I mean, I can do a whole kiln full, all ruined because the glaze just wasn't right. And it's like, oh. And so I was going a little bit easier this round. So
better safe than sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Well, but then I did some plates also. I'm working on plates and to see where I can get some plates, but I really love the cups. That's what I love to make. They're all made. It's like us. We're all made of the same stuff, but we're all unique and different in size and shape in so many different ways. So,
yeah.
But Lisa, thank you. Yeah. I know we could talk for hours.
Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to our next meetup, whenever that is. Whether it's going to be, if you can make it to Scranton, let me know. I'll send you the info.
I just have to check my schedule, see what time I'm done. Usually Fridays, is it at 5 or 6 o'clock? What time is it at?
It's 5 p.m. in Scranton on Friday the 2nd. That's Labor Day weekend, so maybe you should take a half day that day.
Well, that's easy. Absolutely. I might even be off that Friday. I'll take a look at it, and I'm going to try to make it, because again, the people you meet, that's really the energy. And great. Your meetup in New Jersey, great, amazing meat, and just amazing people. So I'm so
Yeah,
grateful.
a lot of
I
fun.
will see you soon. I'll let you know tomorrow or maybe later today. I'll send you an instant message
Okay,
on
sounds
Instagram.
great.
So,
All right, thanks,
oh,
Rob.
all right. God bless you,
All
Lisa. Take
right,
care.
care.
All right,
Bye.
everyone. Thanks for joining us. Take care.